Dallas Jenkins The Chosen has taken on the enormous task of transforming the words of the Bible into a tidy television series, tracing the development of Jesus into the religious figure that we now know him to be. With 5 seasons already completed, viewers are eager to see Season 6 of the Prime Video production, which has been a huge success for the streamer. On that front, there is some bad news. Despite the fact that it is now in production, The Chosen won't be available for viewing for a while. Jenkins used his Sunday morning to speak to fans at the Chosen Insiders Conference and address the delay, stating that it basically stems from the wide-ranging and demanding subject matter and the fatigue levels of the crew. In the end, Jenkins sounds completely worn out after producing 5 seasons of the life of Jesus Christ, played by Jonathan Rumi in the series. The creative went on to describe the exhausting effort he and his team have done thus far, saying, "The translation, the dubbing, the subtitling, all of that takes a very long time. We are trying to release as many languages at one time as we can. It has been quite difficult for the team to provide these seasons to you at the pace we have been doing. Compared to most Chosen films, the quality control procedure has been considerably quicker and more rigorous. That has led to a great deal of suffering and difficulties. The crew working on this is extremely overworked, making it a very challenging process. They have been pleading with me to provide a little more leeway. Therefore, we will undoubtedly continue to do it in upcoming seasons. We can brace ourselves for another lengthy delay between 6 and the grand finale, as Jenkins has already announced that the show will conclude after 7 seasons. The Last Supper, in which Jesus meets with his followers to break bread for the final time before he is betrayed and ultimately executed, was arguably the most significant event of the 5th season of The Chosen. After Jesus is arrested and given a death sentence by Pontius Pilate, the last portion of the sentence is what we can anticipate happening in the 6th season of the show. As these last days of Christ's life unfold, the tone of the upcoming episodes will surely get considerably worse. The Chosen's director said on Sunday that the highly anticipated 6th season of the show will not debut on the same day as its predecessors and will instead be postponed. The Chosen's 4th season debuted in theaters in February 2024, while its 5th season debuted in March and April of the same year. However, director and creator Dallas Jenkins stated on a Sunday live stream that Season 6, which would show Jesus' death, will not be released in the first half of next year, as it would have if it had followed the rhythm of the first 2 seasons. Jenkins remarked, "Everything's just taking longer this season," pointing to the numerous filming locations in Season 6. Season 6 is going to take us longer to film than any season we've ever done by far, so that, of course, then pushes the post-production process back as well. He added that the intention to translate Season 6 into additional languages is another factor contributing to the delay. That takes a lot of time. The translation, the dubbing, the subtitling, all of that takes a very long time, he stated. We are trying to release as many languages at one time as we can. He said the staff asked for a delay. The process of getting these seasons to you at the cadence that we've been doing has been extraordinarily taxing on the team. Jenkins stated, the quality control process has been much faster and tighter than most shows and movies. That's caused a lot of pain, a lot of challenges. The team that works on this is extraordinarily stretched thin, and so it's just a very, very difficult process. They've been begging me to give a little bit more of a cushion, and so we're gonna definitely be doing that for future seasons. Jenkins pointed out that the majority of well-liked TV shows have a group of directors. Jenkins has been working alone on The Chosen. We are trying to do it as fast as we possibly can, he stated. We're not owned by some big studio. We don't have $1 billion at our disposal to make all this work. We're doing this, a lot of this, from scratch. And so it just takes time and it's very difficult. So please be patient with us as we get through that. Production of Season 6 is presently underway with night shoots beginning at 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., he said. According to Jenkins, the first 6 episodes of Season 6 might premiere in the latter half of 2026, with the remaining episodes to follow at a later time. However, nothing is certain. However, fans won't be left without anything because of the postponement of Season 6. The Chosen Adventures, an animated series, will debut this year. Other shows are under development, such as live-action Joseph and Moses series and The Chosen in the Wild, starring Bear Grylls. The 7th season will mark the end of the series. The cast members are like a family, according to Paras Patel, who plays Matthew. He claimed that knowing that the voyage is coming to an end caused a variety of feelings, including melancholy, during the production of the Last Supper sequence in Season 5. He told Crosswalk Headlines, "This is the first season where you know the end is near," alluding to Season 5. It's like losing a family member. Production on Season 6 of The Chosen has already started in North Texas, just a few weeks after the 5th season was released in theaters. The 5th season of the drama series, which is based on the life of Jesus, was broadcast in 3 installments over the course of several weekends in late March and early April. On March 20th, the show had a black, not red, carpet premiere in Red Oak prior to the release of Season 5. In an April 14th Instagram post, The Chosen revealed that Season 6 production has begun. While crew personnel labor in the background, a character wearing an orange robe is seen in front of a clapperboard, bearing the name of the series' creator and director, Dallas Jenkins. According to the facility's website, the Salvation Army owns and runs the 1,200-acre campus, which provides a peaceful setting for conferences and retreats. The grounds of 8060 Singleton Road are home to a number of homes, conference rooms, and meeting rooms. Camp Hoblitzel is home to more than 80,000 square feet of sound stages and outdoor sets for The Chosen, including the 55 sets and locations constructed for Season 5. The Backlot City set was built over the course of 6 months by over 200 crew members, according to the production. Before stone or stucco was poured, a number of those team members wrote their favorite scriptures on the unfinished wall and floor. Jenkins told the Star-Telegram at the Season 5 premiere that having Camp Hoblitzel as a resource over the years and not having to start over every season has been extraordinary. Jenkins stated, "We established a partnership years ago so that we benefit them and they benefit us. The stories of Jesus should be told to the world. That is what we all want." While many fans of the popular television series The Chosen are still enjoying the just-released Season 5, the show's creator and director recently revealed that some parts of the highly anticipated 6th season would be somewhat delayed and will not broadcast on the usual schedule. Dallas Jenkins revealed the disheartening news that the popular series, which reads between the lines in portraying Jesus' ministry, will not be releasing on its usual timetable during a nearly 2-hour Q&A that was just posted on YouTube. Seasons 4 and 5 were released in theaters in February 2024 and late March and early April of current year, respectively, in the previous 2 years. But unlike the past trend, Season 6, which would include Jesus' crucifixion, will not be released in the first half of 2026. Jenkins really stated that he won't be revealing any upcoming release dates until we have them locked in. Season 6 is going to take us longer to film than any season we've ever done by far, so that, of course, then pushes the post-production process as well, he said. The director gave a few explanations for the holdup. The first was that the crew asked for additional time to edit the show. The process of getting these seasons to you at the cadence that we've been doing has been extraordinarily taxing on the team, Jenkins stated. The quality control process has been much faster and tighter than most shows and movies. That's caused a lot of pain, a lot of challenges. The team that works on this is extraordinarily stretched thin, and so it's just a very, very difficult process, he said. They've been begging me to give a little bit more of a cushion, and so we're going to definitely be doing that for future seasons. Jenkins clarified that arranging international logistics, such as releasing the series in other languages, is another factor contributing to the delay. That takes a lot of time. The translation, the dubbing, the subtitling, all of that takes a very long time, he said. We are trying to release as many languages at one time as we can. Jenkins pointed out that the lack of support from a major studio production company is another factor contributing to the show's longer than expected runtime. We're not owned by some big studio. We don't have $1 billion at our disposal to make all this work. We're doing this, a lot of this, from scratch, and so it just takes time, and it's very difficult. So please be patient with us as we get through that, he asked. Throughout this process, he implored his fans to be thankful. Please be grateful for the fact that we tried to get it to you as soon as possible, Jenkins stated. Be grateful for the fact that the show has grown and gotten bigger, and that we are trying to satisfy the needs of everyone around the world. To tide you over between seasons, Jenkins said, fans can enjoy other projects being produced by his own 5 and 2 studio, such as an animated series called The Chosen Adventures. According to Crosswalk, more shows are presently under development, such as The Chosen in the Wild with Bear Grylls and a live-action series about Joseph and Moses. Jenkins reassured viewers that Season 6 is presently under production, with workers beginning filming at 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. Yes, it's underway and we want to celebrate getting started with you, the series' YouTube website has stated. The Chosen Last Supper had its highest-grossing theatrical launch, earning close to $12 million and placing third during its first weekend of release, according to CBN News. According to Box Office Mojo, the 3-part theatrical release had made over $42 million by Easter weekend. Jenkins recently stated on CBN News that Season 5 was intended to be viewed on a large screen. Visually speaking, if there's ever a season that you need to see on the big screen, it's this one. We got the turning over the tables of the temple, we got the triumphal entry, we got the Last Supper, we got the betrayal of Judas. These are big things, big themes, demands to be seen and heard in a room with other people who are going to laugh and cry together. And already the people who've seen these first couple of episodes are like, oh wow, this is big, this is epic. Streaming services will shortly provide the series. Jenkins stated in his YouTube announcement that he will not reveal the series' Amazon Prime Video release date until May 2nd. As he put it, it's the shortest window we've ever had for a release of an entire season to streaming. He clarified that the episodes will be delivered at the same cadence as they were in cinemas. The Chosen, the ambitious biblical epic series, has already finished 5 amazing seasons and has been renewed for a 6th and 7th. The program, which was developed in 2017 by director Dallas Jenkins, is the first to try to tell the biblical account of Jesus' life across a lengthy multi-season arc. The Chosen, which brought well-known biblical tales to life with a historical yet religious perspective, gained popularity fast as the independently produced show gained more and more viewers worldwide through streaming. During its first season, The Chosen was crowdfunded, demonstrating a totally new approach to television production. However, a global outpouring of support swiftly turned the project into a vast company. The little show that could even secured international distribution through Lionsgate, and later seasons were first released in theaters before being made available for online streaming. With the Last Supper and Jesus' betrayal as the main themes, Season 5 has now started to move the narrative into the later years of Jesus' life. The Chosen has been planned out in 7 chapters to finish the plot, 2 of which have already been announced. According to the most recent news, The Chosen has found a new streaming home after years of streaming rights concerns via IndieWire. The biblical epic got enmeshed in rights difficulties as the show gained popularity because it was made available for streaming in so many different places online. Now that Amazon MGM has signed a contract, Prime Video will be the only place to see all 5 of the show's seasons to date, in addition to the 6th and 7th that will air soon. In fact, the agreement between Amazon MGM and Dallas Jenkins 5 and 2 Studios is far more extensive and will cover the streaming rights to the upcoming reality series The Chosen in the Wild, starring Bear Grylls. It may also cover other projects in the future. Additionally, it will designate Amazon MGM as the distributor for the 6th and 7th season's theatrical releases. The Chosen's independent production strategy ensures that, with funding, the series will be produced, unlike other TV shows that depend on a network of streaming sites to either renew or cancel. The blockbuster theatrical and streaming hits promised to tell a 7-season story is probably going to be kept now that money is no longer an issue. Although there are currently few production information available, this indicates that Season 6 is confirmed. It will probably take some time for news about Season 6 to emerge because the theatrical release of Season 5 is currently the main focus. Despite being an independent production, the show has had little trouble releasing new episodes on time, since it began airing on a nearly yearly basis in 2019. Accordingly, 2026 is the most sensible time frame for The Chosen Season 6's release, and it's a completely feasible production schedule, with the assistance of a big distributor like Amazon MGM. The Chosen has had a stable ensemble since Season 1, so it's not too hard to predict the cast for Season 6. Given that Jesus is at the center of the narrative, Jonathan Rumi will undoubtedly return to play the lead role. For the first 5 seasons, Jesus' apostles have remained by his side, including Jordan Walker Ross as Little James, Paris Patel as Matthew, George Xanthus as John, and Shahar Isaac as Simon. It's unknown, though, if Luke Dimion's Judas will return in Season 6, because it's unclear if Season 5 will reveal the show's ultimate conclusion. This could be The Chosen's most difficult task to date because almost all depictions of Jesus' execution must be suitably terrifying. It is rather simple to determine the next events in the timeline because The Chosen is based on biblical stories. The general structure for Season 6 and 7, the last 2 appearances in the main series, was outlined by Dallas Jenkins in his 7-season plan. Season 6 will focus on Jesus' crucifixion and death, while Season 5 will cover the Last Supper and his final betrayal. This could be The Chosen's most difficult task to date, because almost all depictions of Jesus' execution must be suitably terrifying. It's unclear how they will handle such a brutal aspect of the story, though, given The Chosen has always been a rather family-friendly series. While earlier adaptations such as The Passion of the Christ have emphasized the gory aspects, the series is likely to take a more subdued tone. In any case, Season 6 of The Chosen will mostly build up the plot of Season 7, which will focus on Jesus' resurrection and final ascension to heaven. The cast and crew of The Chosen, together with Christian filmmaker Dallas Jenkins, are back on set in Texas, filming the penultimate season of the religious television program. Season 6's 8 episodes will all take place on the day of the crucifixion, and the show's 49-year-old creator and director has already said that the subject matter will make this the most challenging season ever from an emotional standpoint. As Jesus, American actor Jonathan Rumi, who describes himself as a born-again Catholic, and the rest of the cast have turned this play into a worldwide sensation with over 250 million viewers to date. Additionally, the 8 episodes of Season 5, which is currently airing in theaters, have already brought in over $36 million, pushing the total revenue from all of the show's theatrical presentations over the years above $100 million. This is undoubtedly a remarkable accomplishment. The current exclusive agreement with Amazon's Prime Video streaming service is only the latest in a long string of gifts that God has bestowed upon our project, which began back in 2018 when The Chosen broke the record for the most financing for a media project. All of the success, according to Jenkins and his associates, should eventually result in 1 billion viewers and a large number of new believers. Like its predecessors, Season 6 will be filmed in a facsimile set of first-century Jerusalem in Utah, as well as the program's home facility in Midlothian, Texas. Although there is currently no news on when the episodes will begin airing, historical performance points to the first half of next year. In the meantime, Season 5 is still available to watch in theaters. You can find a nearby location and buy tickets by using this link to the show's website. Although the majority of fans are aware of what Season 6 of The Chosen will bring, it is unclear when they will be able to watch it. As Jesus, Jonathan Rumi, comes in Jerusalem and the events of Holy Week start to take place, time is running out in Season 5 of the worldwide hit. However, viewers anticipating Season 6's crucifixion should expect a longer wait than normal. The Chosen team planned where we were going from the start and plotted out 7 seasons of the biblical drama, according to creator and director Dallas Jenkins. In addition to guaranteeing 2 more seasons, The Chosen revealed on X, previously Twitter, on Monday, April 14th, that Season 6 has already started production. The Chosen has been releasing new seasons every year. For example, Seasons 4 and 5 were both released in theaters in 3 parts in the spring of 2024 and 2025, respectively. But before Season 6 premieres, viewers might have to wait another 2 years. The Chosen revealed at ChosenCon 2024 last September that while Season 6 is not anticipated to debut until 2027, Season 7 would follow in 2028, with both seasons receiving special theatrical debuts. The 2-year break makes sense given that Season 6 will be among the most difficult and emotional seasons of the series to date. And the show recently revealed its 5 and 2 studios and a new slate of spin-offs. Fans should be aware, however, that this window of release was established before The Chosen revealed its collaboration with Amazon Prime Video, and before Amazon MGM Studios partnered with the show to produce global theatrical premiere events for Season 6 and 7. Now, the question is whether the previously established release date for Season 6 will remain the same, or if Amazon's involvement would alter it, particularly given that filming is already underway. New updates are anticipated in the upcoming weeks as Season 5 of The Chosen, Last Supper approaches its streaming premiere and the show's theatrical run draws to a close. However, unless there is new official confirmation, fans shouldn't anticipate seeing Season 6 in theaters until 2027. As Jesus gets ready to break bread, he notes how fervently he has wanted to share their final meal together. Before everything is realized in the kingdom of God, ignoring his disciples' perplexity, Luke 22:14-15. As he breaks the bread, he blesses God and explains that it will now symbolize Israel's deliverance from sin, just as it did when God delivered them from Egyptian slavery and brought them to the promised land. In Luke 22:19, he identifies the bread as his body broken for the disciples and invites them to partake and eat it in remembrance of him. Jesus blesses the cup after they have completed breaking bread and eating, recognizing that the wine used to symbolize the blood of the Passover lamb, but now represents the blood of the new covenant that was shed to atone for sins. They are also to remember Jesus by doing this. Luke 22:20. Jesus delivers the "I am the true vine" speech or poetry as they each take a sip from the cup, urging the disciples to dwell in him so that their joy may be complete. John 15:1-11. Jesus glances at the end of the table as he concludes this discourse and grins, seeing a vision of John the Baptizer, whose happiness is obviously now complete. John 3:29. Jesus declares that even though he washed all of the disciples, one is still unclean, once more disregarding their confusion. John 13:10. One who has eaten his bread has lifted his heel against him. Jesus continues. John 13:18, Psalm 41:9. In order to bind him and make him wish he had never been born, Peter and Simon Z implored Jesus to reveal who it is. Cf. Matthew 26:24. The disciples all stare at one another in disbelief and fear as Jesus, overcome with emotion, had to take a little break. The Chosen Season, 5 Last Supper, Part 3. Episode 6 features Nicodemus and Mary Magdalene. The story of Nicodemus opens with a flashback to a time before the events of Season 5, but after John the Baptizer's death and Shmuel's rise to the Sanhedrin. Zebediah is presiding over a fairly dull Sanhedrin meeting, while Nicodemus is sound asleep. He is welcomed back from a recent trip to Bethel by Shmuel after the meeting is adjourned. The two are still feeling alienated by what happened in Season 1 and are not sure how to get back in touch, so it's an awkward moment. After wishing Shmuel well, Nicodemus proceeds to a meeting with Zebediah, who is assigned to give him a brief update on the Sanhedrin's recent activities. When Nicodemus visits John in prison, he admits that John was certainly a character, yet he is nevertheless astonished and saddened by his passing. When he inquires about John's cousin Jesus, he is shocked to hear that even Caiaphas has condemned him in a speech and issued a decree against everyone who backs him. When Nicodemus learns of this, he quickly leaves Zebediah's conference and heads home, where he locates Matthias, the mysterious watcher, and assigns him a task. Mary Magdalene asks Nicodemus why he has been searching for her back in the present. Nicodemus discloses that because informants and spies are out, he had to bring her here covertly. He has been monitoring Jesus' actions through Matthias, and he is concerned about the way Jesus appears to be consistently converting possible supporters into adversaries and accusing the leaders of being hypocrites. Nicodemus continues by explaining that, in his role as teacher of Israel, he regularly witnesses false messiahs emerge and be put down before they accomplish anything, but he feels it is his sacred duty to disprove them when he witnesses someone gaining a genuine following among the populace. However, Matthias has actually reported the exact opposite. The blind see with their eyes opened, the deaf hear with their ears unstopped, the mute speak, the lame men leap like deer, the people who walked in darkness see with great light. Isaiah 9:2. And a ruler from ancient times emerges from Bethlehem. Micah 5:2. Mary wonders why Nicodemus has chosen to skip the Sanhedrin and not tell the other professors. Nicodemus responds by acknowledging that a large portion of the Sanhedrin is overly preoccupied with politics, money, and fear. He is unable to defend himself against the accusations of false prophecy. Before leaving, Mary expresses her gratitude to Nicodemus for reaching out to her in the Red Quarter and making an effort to assist her despite the discomfort. Nicodemus acknowledges Mary's transformation via Jesus, but he rejects his own efforts. He is adamant that he will go to the Bible to see what the Messiah will bring. Zohara, Nicodemus's wife, arrives after Mary leaves and laments that he hasn't been taking proper care of himself. She wants to discuss since she can sense what's happening, but Nicodemus says it's not the right moment. When Mary encounters a soldier, like the one who raped her, on her way back from Nicodemus's house, she is overcome with emotion. She takes encouragement in Matthias's statement that those who walk in darkness encounter a tremendous light. Yusuf, in disguise, brings bad news to Nicodemus, who is still studying Jesus' teachings and the messianic predictions in Scripture to gain a better understanding of what is coming. According to his informants, Caiaphas intends to have Jesus taken into custody. Nicodemus initially rejects the report because Caiaphas is powerless and has no chance of finding Jesus. However, Yusuf later discloses that there is a collaborator among the disciples and that Annas is forcing Caiaphas to hold a trial by taking advantage of a legal gap. Although Yusuf maintains that the Sanhedrin is not wholly corrupt, he does maintain that they must be the ones to speak up. Nicodemus worries that it's too late to make a difference. Strong words won't resolve the issue, and revealing his devotion to Jesus would only result in his exclusion from future conversations. Yusuf encourages Nicodemus to speak up, but gives in to his pressure to follow his example and conceal his loyalty to Jesus. Nicodemus asks Yusuf to assist him in looking through the scriptures for hints about what is coming next. Episode 6 continues where Episode 5 left off, with Judas, Shmuel, and Malchus standing in front of Caiaphas. Caiaphas agrees when Judas states at the beginning of their meeting that he is not like them, citing his own status as the only anointed priest with access to the Holy of Holies. Judas explains that he means that, in contrast to them, he thinks that, given everything he has witnessed, Jesus is most likely the Messiah. Judas acknowledges that he hasn't seen enough after Caiaphas asks why he is betraying him, but he still believes that Jesus would triumph over his captors, lead an uprising against Rome, and bring about the Messianic era. Caiaphas chastises Judas for speaking to him so brazenly and dismisses Malchus and Shmuel out of frustration. Caiaphas tells Judas to stay when he offers to go. Judas, feeling strong, maintains that they only need to decide on a price. After arguing about the price, with Caiaphas threatening to torture him and Judas threatening to walk, the two ultimately agree on 30 pieces of silver, 4 months of labor, or the cost of a slave, Exodus 21:32. To prevent starting a disturbance and inciting Roman wrath, Judas demands that Caiaphas arrest Jesus in secret. The 30 pieces of silver won't help Judas much if Rome destroys the city, even though he expects Jesus would deliver. In response, Caiaphas orders Judas to locate a time within the next 24 hours to betray Jesus. The following day, Pilate storms in and confronts Caiaphas about his intentions to arrest Jesus, while Malchus directs the household slaves to ensure that there is no leaven present in the house on the Feast of Unleavened Bread. See Exodus 12. Pilate maintains that he has fulfilled his end of the bargain by putting zealots to death, which is despised by both Rome and the common Jews, who view them as troublemakers. Caiaphas maintains that he must bring down the city's messianic fever, and that a Roman like Pilate is incapable of understanding what the Jewish people are in dire need of at the moment. Pilate, who is irritated by Caiaphas's seeming claim to the Jews' special religious exemption, despite their defeat by Rome, threatens to sever their alliance if Caiaphas's schemes incite conflict. Simon Z, Kaphne, and Atticus in The Chosen Season 5 Last Supper, Part 3, Episode 6. Atticus is now holding Kaphne after capturing him in Episode 5. Atticus reminds Kaphne that only Roman citizens have rights after he maintains that they have no authority to hold him. Atticus describes what he knows of Kaphne's small, haphazard group of disgruntled people who don't have the zealot sense of direction. He nevertheless admits that he is aware that Jesus is the reason they are here and demands to know why. Atticus chastises Kaphne for claiming that Jesus killed and seduced his daughter, stating that Jesus would never do either. When Kaphne finally shares his entire story, Atticus chastises him for using Rama's death to further his own agenda and placing the blame on a convenient victim like Jesus, rather than facing his own sorrow and shame as a man would. Atticus releases Kaphne the following day, pretending that everything went wrong. As Atticus departs from his group of soldiers and enters a Roman prison, Simon Zede watches and follows him around the streets. In the meantime, Kaphne rejoins his group of rabble-rousers and uses Psalm 84 to praise God. He insists that the Lord has blessed their labor by favoring him with Rome. The other men offer him their congratulations, quoting Jeremiah's supplication, Jeremiah 32:18-19. Job's admission that no plan of the Lord can be stopped, Job 42:2, and the tale of David's pretended insanity, 1 Samuel 21:10. However, his wife Naomi is not impressed and publicly chastises him for using scripture to support Roman collaboration. Naomi argues that Rama's love for her rabbi and Thomas was not a spell, despite Kaphne's insistence that she was under a spell. Naomi tells him that she cannot witness what hate has done to him, even though he maintains that he cannot lose her to Jesus either. Atticus and Simon Z reunite inside the Roman prison. Zede maintains that the Messiah cannot be imprisoned in a jail when Atticus tells of the difficulties Jesus is experiencing. As they speak, soldiers show up with Barabbas, Zede's old buddy, and one of the zealots who will be put to death on Friday. Z is saddened because if his eyes and heart were open, Barabbas, the zealot who was present in Season 3, Episode 6, should have seen enough to believe. Atticus chuckles at this idea and cautions Z and the other followers from going to jail. He wishes him luck and says that luck is what happens when opportunity and preparation meet. He leaves him with 2 swords and a zealot knife. The zealot knife is left behind, but Simon Z accepts the 2 swords. Part 3 of The Chosen Season 5 begins well in Episode 6, which has a number of powerful elements. The Lord's Supper. I thought the portrayal of the Lord's Supper was generally good. It seems natural that the true vine speech would be featured during the cup-giving ceremony, and I'm happy we heard the majority of it. In addition to being a very moving moment, John the Baptizer's arrival at the table is a deft reminder that John is the Elijah of the future, replacing Elijah at the table. Mary Magdalene and Nicodemus. I'm happy the program brought the two back together, even though I have some problems with the Nicodemus plot. See below. I really like his interactions with Mary in general. His response to Mary's final expression of gratitude was quite heartwarming. Mary's trauma. Re-examined. I like that we were given a quick reminder of Mary's trauma response to Roman soldiers, and that we witnessed her development as she overcame the trauma by finding solace in Isaiah 9:2. However, I believe this passage may have benefited from a bit more space. Judas and Caiaphas. Caiaphas and Judas engage in heated and captivating back-and-forth arguments and bargaining. My sole criticism is that Judas ought to have made an initial attempt and failed to persuade Caiaphas to think about siding with Jesus. Atticus, Simon Z, and Kaphne. I disagree with Atticus's storyline, see below once more, but I like his real conversation with Kaphne. He is the ideal person to make fun of Kaphne for putting his embarrassment on Jesus, rather than facing it directly. Additionally, I still enjoy his relationship with Simon Z, and it seems highly suggestive thematically for him to be the one to gift the swords. Barabbas's identity. I think it's a great concept that Barabbas was the zealot who saw Jesus' signs but chose not to react. It gives his journey in season 6 some intriguing background, and is a terrific opportunity to illustrate how not everyone who experienced Jesus' signs went on to have true faith. Identity of the Watcher. Matthias is a better choice than Mark, despite my initial expectation. Being a witness to Jesus' teachings and healing acts during his career is one of the most important prerequisites for becoming an apostle, Acts 1:21-22. Although there weren't many non-apostle male disciples who could fit that description in previous seasons of the show, Matthias's backstory qualifies him to take Judas's place, Acts 1:23-26. Performances. Luke Dimyon is powerful as Judas, and Richard Fancy maintains his nasty guy intensity as Caiaphas. Liz Tabish had a little more to do as Mary Magdalene, and it was great to see Eric Avari return as Nicodemus, as captivating as ever. Additionally, there is a lot of chemistry between Ala Safi as Simon Zede and Elijah Alexander as Atticus. However, there were several problems with episode 6. True Vine quibble. It is incorrect to separate the True Vine speech from the mandate to love as Jesus loved us. John 15:12-17. Even though I appreciate its presence, it is obvious that the purpose of the love command is to define what it means to bear fruit. Nicodemus's timing and methods. Why didn't he have Matthias alert them earlier if Nicodemus was concerned that Jesus would bring down wrath? And is he genuinely under the impression that Mary is a spy who will expose him? If she was, why would it matter if she knew his residence? Certainly the Sanhedrin is aware of this information. The kidnapping of Mary at the end of episode 5 feels more like a manufactured cliffhanger than a natural progression of the plot, because there aren't any satisfying answers to issues like these. Atticus's methods. I felt a little let down when Atticus's approach with Kaphne was simply to encourage him to keep doing what he's doing, considering the show has been presenting him as this exceptional 4D chess player. Was it really necessary for Atticus to convey that point by first arresting him? Once more, it seems as though the arrest was not a natural progression of the plot, but rather a contrived plot device used to build suspense at the conclusion of the previous episode. Atticus is generally starting to feel like a bit of a story device. He can turn up and do whatever the writers ask him to do, because no one truly understands his plans or tactics. That, in my opinion, is the risk of having a character with concealed plans. Too much worrying, too little movement. One of my co-hosts stated during our audio discussion of episodes 3 to 5 that he would cry if the leaders had one more conversation about what to do with Jesus. After part 3, I'm concerned he will be sobbing. Since Caiaphas and Pilate already had a strained relationship and Pilate already knew what Caiaphas planned, their conversation didn't actually accomplish much. Overall, this episode seemed to contain an excessive number of exchanges that essentially amounted to people merely worried about what would happen next. Atticus and Simon Z, Nicodemus and Yusuf, Nicodemus and Mary, and Caiaphas and Pilate. When Jesus establishes the Lord's Supper at the beginning of episode 6, the concept of remembering is established. According to him, the bread used to serve as a remembrance of how God delivered Israel from slavery and fed them when they were traveling through the desert to reach the promised land. The disciples are instructed to remember that Jesus' body was broken for them as they break the bread. Jesus also adds that the cup would now be taken in commemoration of his own bloodshed for the remission of sins, rather than the blood of the Passover lamb. In order to live with Jesus in the present and obtain the strength necessary to grow fruit through our own acts of love and sacrifice, it is crucial that we remember how he died in the past. When a vision of John the Baptist shows up at the table, Jesus himself has an opportunity to communicate with the past. Although John's death was tragic, Jesus finds some solace and strength in remembering it as he gets ready to die. Similar to this, remembering Jesus' death can reassure and uplift us when we are confronting death, either literally or figuratively. In episode 6, Jesus is not the only person who is reminded of John. Nicodemus is forced to think back on his interactions with Jesus and the baptizer after learning of John's passing. Nicodemus is jolted out of his complacency and back into action by these memories. Nicodemus, however, is wary of the possibility of yet another failed revolt because of his recollections of the numerous false prophets and messiahs who have provoked Roman wrath. Mary makes a special effort to recall their initial meeting and expresses gratitude to Nicodemus for his contribution before they part ways. Nicodemus appears to be inspired by this recollection to intensify his attempts to look for hints about what is to come in the scriptures. A Roman soldier similar to the one who raped Mary is a reminder of her own traumatic past that she runs into on her way home. For an instant, fear and sadness appear to resurface, but by remembering Isaiah 9:2, Mary is able to find solace, healing, and hope in the midst of these troubling memories. Another painful memory that Kophni is dealing with is the passing of his cherished daughter, Rama. However, Kophni is purposefully forgetting what happened in order to avoid facing his own sadness and remorse. As Atticus notes, he claims that Jesus killed and seduced his daughter, but this is patently untrue. Instead of finding the solace and healing he truly needs, Kophni is pushing himself toward a more bleak future by failing to remember the past correctly. As Naomi notes, it also appears noteworthy that when Kophni's men greet him, they uniformly misremember scripture, misapplying biblical tales or realities to support their own foolish behavior. Simon Z also experiences dark recollections after following Atticus into a Roman prison and running across Barabbas, a former countryman. Following their conversation, Atticus gives Simon a zealot Sicarii dagger, which serves as a reminder of his violent history. Simon steals the two swords from Atticus, but he noticeably forgets to take the dagger. When Z chose to join Jesus, he threw his own dagger into the Jordan River. Z is appropriately remembering what he vowed to do when he started following Jesus by putting the dagger away. To sum up, we can discover the courage and hope we need to face our own hardships by reflecting on God's deeds of deliverance and the suffering of others. Another crucial strategy for finding solace, knowledge, and healing during difficult times is to remember the Bible. However, memory can also be a barrier. If we don't have recollections of the truth to counterbalance the dark or false memories, they can overpower or seduce us, perceiving and trusting. The Lord's Supper is typically seen in Christian theology as a sacrament or as an outward manifestation of an intangible truth. The gospel would be an unseen reality without sacraments like communion. We would only hear about it and never witness it. Jesus is guaranteeing that his church will be able to see an evidence of his atoning death across all generations by granting us communion. Acts of selfless love for others, or the fruit that his disciples bear, will serve as yet another outward manifestation of Christ's continuing influence and presence in their lives. John 15:9. Nicodemus, determined to disbelieve, sends Matthias to observe what Jesus is doing. Instead, what Matthias witnesses and tells Nicodemus, the dead being raised, the blind seeing, the deaf hearing, and the lame leaping, convinces him to believe. It's not always enough to believe in miracles, though. The Sanhedrin is so preoccupied with politics, money, and fear that it is unable to see clearly. But Matthias and Nicodemus interpret the miracles they have witnessed in the context of messianic predictions. Judas has witnessed enough miracles to persuade them that Jesus is probably the Messiah. However, he acknowledges to Caiaphas that he hasn't seen enough, meaning he hasn't witnessed Jesus perform the action he believes Jesus ought to perform. His betrayal is an attempt to coerce Jesus into revealing the celestial glory Judas believes he possesses. However, Judas lacks the faith necessary to continue believing in Jesus in the event that he behaves in an unexpected manner. Based on the miracles he witnessed Jesus accomplish in Season 3, Episode 6, Barabbas too seems to have had just a limited amount of trust. Z maintains that if Barabbas's eyes and heart had been open, what he saw ought to have been sufficient. However, it appears that his heart and eyes were closed, as Atticus notes. As Judas appears ready to do, Barabbas' religion was short-lived and he went back to his old habits.